it's very important not to think that the JPEG itself or the image itself or the art itself is the token. It is not. The token is just an entry in a database on the blockchain. NFT just stands for Non-Fungible Token. To make it super simple, just definitionally, what it means is that what you're buying is not the same as other individual units. So for example, when you go and buy Bitcoin, Ethereum, or any of the usual cryptocurrency or crypto assets, whether you own this particular Bitcoin or that particular Bitcoin doesn't matter. Every Bitcoin is kind of the same way that a dollar is a dollar. So if I give you a dollar, you give me a dollar bill, we haven't really, nothing has changed. Similarly in the real world, if I have a trading card and I give you a trading card, you give me one back, then the specifics of that trading card, baseball card, whatever, or art or Picasso or whatever, is obviously what's important in trying to figure out the value of one NFT versus another NFT. So now you have a technology that allows a very public, in a public decentralized way. Again, let's not forget the pillars of what blockchain technology is about in decentralization, that instead of having to get something authenticated by Christie's or by, the manufacturer or the initial artist or anything like that, what happens at the genesis of the individual token, the creator of the token ascribes, defines, creates the token whichever way they want, but it's not recorded in a way that nobody can challenge whether it is authentic to the person who created it. Basically, if you want to write a poem and you say, okay, I have a poem, I'm the first one who wrote this poem, nobody else did, or a script or anything, any intellectual property. In Europe, what you do if you write a script is that you take the script and you register it with some national agency that says, I wrote this first, right? In the United States, for example, which is kind of funny, what you do is that you put the script in an envelope and you mail it to yourself and you never open it to make sure that you have something that has on the outside a date stamp that says that inside of this is this work product that you did, that you can always prove to anyone and anybody in court that you were the one who wrote it first. Now, for artists, you can ascribe anything to it, anything to the properties of that token. So what's happened is the first market that's developed is this kind of digital art where, people just don't want to buy a token for the purpose of a token. They want to buy a token because it has something, right? So the first market that was developed, which has developed, is the idea of attaching a JPEG, a file, an image, a GIF, an animation, something of graphical nature. If you want to think about who would be at the beginning of this market or of this technology, it would be people who would have two skills, creative skills and technology skills. Creating an NFT is actually something, let's say complicated. Again, all you're buying is the token. You're not even buying the JPEG. The JPEG is just an attribute. It's like a piece of data which is attached to the token, right? But if the artist, the creator, behaves in a certain particular way, which means that they're not just going to resell 3 times, 20 times, 500 times the same thing, and which is the basic understanding that already exists in real art, which is that a painter doesn't usually repaint the exact same painting 14 times in order to sell it, those mechanics are more or less the same. As a collector, you can collect it. As a collector, you can sell it to another collector. As a broker, you can invest in it. You can create a portfolio. You can do all these kind of things. And it mimics, if you want, very much many of the attributes of the existing art market, which is that, sure, an artist, a dealer, could try to create a number of different versions of something. But if you are a believer in this particular artist, and that artist is the original minter, the original person who created the token, right? Then you have a direct link between you and the original artist. Because remember that you could create an NFT for anything. You could create an NFT for a piece of intellectual property. You could create it for a poem. You could create an NFT for a car. You could create an NFT, right? So right now we're only talking about a very small subset, which is where the market is right now, which is where graphic artists who have technology skills have put in their art as an attachment to a token and then sold that token with which the art followed, as opposed to where the world is now, where you can sell a piece of art and then through the gallerist at a very large commission, if anybody knows what the gallerist takes of the selling price, you never participate in the appreciation of your work ever after you're done, right? You can only create new series, new works, and so on and so forth to create new revenues. In this particular case, an NFT has the magical ability to set a royalty rate, since everything has to go through the blockchain. If you sell a piece of art to someone and they go on to sell it to somebody else, you will participate at a rate that you decide. But let's say that you go out and put in the marketplace, you sell it to someone, you sell it to a gallery, you sell it to a collector, whatever it is. Any transactions after that, whether the gallery resells it to somebody else, whether the collector sells it to somebody else, you have set a royalty, which is set in stone for the life of the NFT, where automatically your wallet, because again, remember, you started out having an identity on the blockchain, you will earn royalties. To me, this is a very immature market, right? It's a very early market. The market for NFT started with the Ethereum chain. The Ethereum chain is a proof of work chain now, transitioning to a proof of stake chain, and has been beleaguered for a long time by very, very high fees, right? Which means that it is very expensive to mint anything on the chain, right? And to super simplify, and again, many people will disagree, but the way I think about it, there are basically two types of artists in the Ethereum chain. There are people buying status symbol tokens, which is that you see a lot of collections constructed as series of one. So every individual token is unique, but is part of a collection that looks very, very similar, which are derivation on a theme, Bored Apes, CryptoPunks, so on and so forth, where basically you can create thousands of unique pieces, which either through generative art or through actual work are very similar, and then people can go out and buy those at extremely high prices in some cases, and very often use them as avatar on their social networks, profiles, and then use them essentially as a belonging group membership token. The second type of artist is an artist that already has a following in the real world, where some brokers and themselves have decided, people, David Hockney, many others, go to the NFT market as another product to sell to their collectors. So Christie Sotheby's will organize and manage the transition for very well-established artists. So if you want to think of the artist pool as being very big, medium, and small artists, right? The very big artists can go to a market like the NFT and go out and put their work on it and find new products to sell. Medium and small artists just can't participate in something which is that expensive. If it costs you $300 to $500 to list an individual piece of art that you're then going to go and sell for $50, that doesn't make any sense. To understand gas fees is important. Every time that you buy something on a chain, you need to record the ownership onto the blockchain. There are fees associated, which are called gas fees. To summarize, buying NFTs, selling NFTs, minting NFTs is technically complicated for the average person. It is not something that most artists are going to do by themselves for a little while. Now, you could have said the same thing about using a cell phone or whatever it is at whatever point and so on and so forth. But right now, that's more or less where we are. Now, there's a whole market to build where you sell a token which is attached to a piece of physical art or physical intellectual property, right? In the future, not yet, because you don't see it yet enough, but in the future, it is very logical for an artist to sell an NFT along with a piece of real physical art in order to be able to prove its authenticity and also be able to collect royalty. There's a bunch of game theory incentives why it should kind of generally be the case that the NFT will follow the physical piece of art, because you could also imagine that people would sell the NFT separate from the piece of art. But again, NFT is the proof of authenticity of the piece of art itself. Sure enough, there are other blockchains that exist that have developed independently other art markets, right? And the two that come to mind are the Solana on one side and Tezos on the other side, right? And there is a cottage industry, there's a material number of artists who are trying to use both, because again, there the gas fees are negligible, so they're pennies in order to mint, pennies in order to sell. There seems to be a very active creative community around the Tezos chain. It's messy, but just to make a statement backed with, not enough research, the average quality of the work on the Tezos chain seems to be significantly more artistically driven than on Solana or on ETH, meaning that on Solana and ETH you see way more of these trading cardish type of projects, collections, things that are kind of the same, and maybe you want to call them social collections. What's interesting there is that you can find a lot of art there. There's a lot to do. It's a very messy overall. It's very interesting. These are not organized markets, so this is early. Many things to learn and to understand and hurdles to get over. Ultimately, artists and collectors should probably not care which blockchain this is on, as long as the blockchain survives. So the fact that you have small artists and kind of a fervent creative community on the Tezos blockchain, and you have these kind of more established communities on the ETH blockchain, my sense is going to be some kind of re-equalization that's going to happen at some particular point. And there's two probable make this happen, which is that Coinbase not having been allowed to commercialize their Lend product, which was, the next big product, which was where they would basically allow you to earn money on your crypto. They have announced that their next big thing is going to be NFTs, right? And what that means is that they're most likely going to build some tools for collectors, perhaps artists and so on and so forth, to go out and do that. And it's very possible that they will build kind of the social mechanism that I think is needed, but they also will open it to Tezos and to Solana, which basically means if to a Coinbase customer buying art, what do they care if it's on Ethereum or Tezos or Solana in that respect? And to Coinbase, with its brand and its marketing muscle, can make that point quite heftily. And the same thing with OpenSea. OpenSea is the largest marketplace on the Ethereum blockchain, and they have announced they will add other blockchains to their art collection.